The bird flu hits Nebraska. Here on NTV's Grow, we take a closer look at avian influenza here in the state. Also, state sanctions being handed out after state fair as some animals tested positive for certain drugs. And also, we take a look at a bill being proposed that could impact ethanol. And meet your Farm Youth of the Month. It's all just ahead here on NTV's Grow. An emergency declared in Nebraska as an infectious disease hits birds in the state. 2 cases of avian influenza confirmed in commercial flocks in Dixon County. In northeast Nebraska, both farms are operated by the same producer. Around 3 million birds have to be destroyed. CDC considers the risk to people to be low. State Ag Director Greg Ibaugh urges all poultry producers, large and small, to follow strict biosecurity procedures. Failed drug tests lead to sanctions. This is in a high school competition. We're not talking about on the court or in the football field this time. We're talking about livestock show rings. 2 winning sheep and 2 winning hogs tested positive. Now the state fair board, after many appeals, they're handing out sanctions. NTV's Steve White now brings you the latest.
We need a level playing field.
It's our desire to have a level playing field
for all 4-H'ers and FFA'ers.
Speaking with a unified voice, State Fair board members say they have no choice but to enforce the rules, even if it means sanctions for kids who showed animals that failed drug tests.
We know what's going on. It'll probably still be going on. People know that they're going to get tested if this comes around.
The fair's rule book says all champion animals in 4-H and FFA will be tested. 2 hogs and 2 sheep came back positive. Fair leaders say animals using painkillers and other unapproved drugs could have an unfair edge. Officials say 99% of kids care for their animals by the book, and they want to reassure those families the competition is above board.
There's a lot of 4-H'ers that say, why should we come to Nebraska State Fair if we're going to be playing against people that are using enhanced drugs or whatever to get to that first place, and they're not going to show up.
Since these animals are raised for their meat, they also want to send a message that the fair cares about livestock well-being.
All of these market animals are destined to become part of the food chain. We want to ensure we have to supply the people of this country with a very nutritious, very healthful, very safe product.
The cost for cattle brand inspections could be on the rise. We're talking up to $1.10 per herd. This is under a law by Governor Pete Ricketts. Committee employees inspect cattle that are about to be sold and investigate reports of missing or stolen livestock. Senator Al Davis of Hyannis said the Brand Inspection Committee needs to upgrade its record system and struggles to recruit and retain quality employees because of low salaries. New research on mandatory labels costing consumers billions of dollars for something they don't even want. The research from Kansas State University was presented to Congress by the USDA. It studied the economic impact of mandatory country of origin labeling, which have been on meat products since 2009. The study found over 10 years, consumers experienced a net loss of $6 billion for beef products and $2 billion for pork. This is due to higher retail prices and less meat available. But research finds most people don't even know about the labels.
There is limited evidence that the public is aware that law exists, and it shouldn't surprise us that if there's limited awareness, there's going to be limited revealed demand behavior, and that is core, I would say, to why we don't have an observed demand benefit. And real simply, if you go to a benefit cost assessment and you have no benefit but you have cost, it becomes an adverse thing for the industry because you have cost with no offsetting benefits.
The World Trade Organization is expected to make an announcement later this month about the future of those labels. The report suggests a voluntary approach would be better. This is a busy time of year out in those Nebraska fields. It's also busy out on those Nebraska roads. A lot of ag leaders and those in the industry, they're asking everyone to use caution while out there on the highways and on rural roads as well. Here's NTV's Tanner Kaler.
One farmer that I spoke with says day or night, it doesn't matter. Both have their own dangers that can be deadly if drivers aren't paying attention. It's prompting one agency to hold special classes this spring on how to share the streets safely. Planting season brings rain, long hours, and machinery on local roads. For Craig Grams, a farmer near Upland, he says he's had some scary moments.
Many close calls.
Graham says sometimes the farmers don't see the other vehicles on the road. Sometimes it's the other way around.
They've got the big bulk tanks in the back and you can't see behind them very well, and if you're coming up to a corner to make a left or right hand turn, you have to kind of swing out. Sometimes it can be a little difficult, a little scary at times too.
According to reports from the Nebraska Department of Roads, crash rates on urban roads happen about 3 times as many as those on rural roads.
But when you look at the fatalities, there are about just the opposite, 3 times as many fatalities in rural areas.
Why? The Extension Office speculates road conditions and distance from emergency services are mostly to blame, but they add drivers have to take responsibility as well.
Both drivers need to be aware of what's going on. Machinery operators need to know that there are vehicles around, even on gravel roads, even on roads that are seldom used.
Nighttime, obviously, but you can see if there's someone behind you. Daytime, you can't see if there's anyone behind you because, you don't see headlights or any of that stuff, and there's more traffic in the daytime.
Graham says he keeps an eye out for those other drivers on the road. He hopes they do the same for him.
They're pretty conscientious about pulling over and giving us space when we're going down the road.
The UNL Extension Office is holding several classes around the state teaching rural driving and tractor safety over the coming weeks. The first will be held in Kearney at the end of the month. I'll have more information about that on our website, nebraska.tv.
While it is also a busy time of year, it's a time of year in the thick of planting season, and moving forward here, herbicide, pesticide will be laid out on those fields. Ag Director Greg Ibaugh encourages communication between herbicide applicators and specialty crop producers. There is a way you can do that online. It's called DriftWatch, a free website allowing those with pesticide-sensitive organic crops and beehives to report their locations. Herbicide and pesticide applicators can then review on the site to see what is in their area. Farmers are expected to plant less corn and soybeans compared to last year. This is on the most recent report from the USDA. Projections show 13.6 billion bushels of corn expected to be harvested. That's roughly 4% less than last year. And soybean farmers are expected to grow nearly 13.8 billion bushels, down 3%. USDA did indicate both corn and soybean planting are well ahead of the 5-year average. The weather can make or break a crop, and new research shows when it comes to wheat, extreme heat can do more damage than extreme cold.
Crops are worth up to $3 billion a year just in Kansas alone, and we produce about 15% of the wheat that's grown in the United States.
The U.S. produced 2 billion bushels of wheat last year, valued at more than $12 billion. But climate change threatens that wheat production. New study from Kansas State University found hotter temperatures in spring will do more damage to wheat than freezing temperatures in winter. And there's another challenge. Farmers are using new breeds to produce more wheat, but those types of wheat don't do as well in extreme heat.
Global warming and an increase in temperature, we might lose some of that. And in fact, our study showed that the more recently released varieties of wheat are less heat resistant than the older ones are.
Debate finally moving forward on Trade Promotion Authority. Meanwhile, Nebraska Farm Bureau emphasizes importance to pass this piece of legislation. Bureau President Steve Nelson says not passing the TPA would be a major blow to Nebraska farm and ranch families. That is because ag trade is directly tied to the prices farmers and ranchers receive for ag commodities and is a major factor in farm income. A proposed rule to regulate water is one step closer to getting knocked down. The Regulatory Integrity Protection Act of 2015 is an effort to defeat the EPA and Army Corps proposed Waters of the United States rule. The House of Representatives passed the Integrity Act, and Common Sense Nebraska released this statement saying, quote, "We are very pleased to see the House of Representatives stand up for our nation's farmers, ranchers, home builders, county governments, golf courses, small businesses. Now this act will head over to the Senate." Speaking of water, squirt guns, giant bubbles, and rockets. This is how kids are learning about agriculture, wildlife, and the water that is needed. NTV Grove's Steve White took a look at the Children's Groundwater Festival.
3, 2, 1!
Soaring to the sky. It's a rocket propelled by nothing more
So we're going to slide down
than water pressure. If you're going to teach kids about water and natural resources, might as well make it fun.
Let's try to educate people, adults and children both, on the importance of groundwater and the problems that we can have with it and what we can do to keep our water good.
From sleight of hand to hands-on. The secret of the Children's Groundwater Festival is the mix of science and games. Tests given ahead of time in school and after the event show the messages sink in.
Students really do retain the knowledge. We've heard parents and teachers fill out the evaluation forms and send them in and really do show that they are absorbing the information.
Kids learn about the properties of water and its importance in the home and industry.
Well, you can use water for many things, like showering, brush our teeth, to wash our hands, make food.
The cornfield behind us.
Nebraska uses water for plants.
From 1 bushel of corn.
Irrigation is a huge use of Nebraska water, of course.
We're an agricultural state and it's very important to us.
They also learn about groundwater quality and contamination.
Have some ways to prevent that from happening.
And after 27 years, the event that began in central Nebraska still soars high.
An ethanol bill proposal. We hear from Adrian Smith coming up after the break, and later on, your Grow forecast. Stay with us.